Our last operation is division. And so chapter 6, lesson 2b, we're going to solve division equations. And that is your learning target, is I know how to solve one-step division equations. We're just taking this one step further. We're kind of taking a look at each one of these as far as add, subtract, multiply, and divide go, and how to solve for a variable just taking one step. So, your definition. First we have to define what the multiplication property of equality is. And what that is that's two sides of an equation will remain equal when you multiply by the same number on each side. So that's what that's saying is that if we have two numbers that are equal, A equals B, then A times some number C will still equal B times C. Those are going to stay equal. If A and B are the same, then if you multiply by the same number on both sides, then they're going to stay equal. These will still stay equal. And that makes us very, very happy. Oops, move the paper too. That's how happy I am. Okay, so your key concept here to solve these types of problems is to solve them, you need to use the multiplication property of equality, this right here, to multiply a number being divided by a variable from both sides of the equal sign to keep the equation balanced, and then you simplify. So let's do just two examples, and then we'll finish this up. Example 1 states that we need to solve A divided by a -3 equals -10, and then check our solution. Okay, so we have A, I'm going to rewrite the equation, divided by, broke my lead, -3 equals a -10. Alright, so we want to get this variable by itself. We want to isolate the variable. That means we need to get rid of this -3 here in the denominator. And how I can do that is use the multiplication property of equality by multiplying both sides by that denominator of -3. Because what happens here is -3 divided by -3 is just 1. And so on this one side of the equation then, we've canceled these out and we're left with just A. And -10 times a -3, we had to keep it balanced, remember, is going to equal 30. So A equals 30. And before we move on from example 1, we want to check our work to make sure that it is correct. So we're going to plug this 30 back in for A, and 30 divided by a -3. I know 30 divided by 3 is 10, but one negative means it's negative. It's going to be a -10. And that is perfect. Example 2, let's go. Alright, the final example. It says the distance D that Karen travels in her car while driving 70 miles per hour for 3 hours can be represented by the equation D divided by 3 equals 70. The question is, how far did she travel? So we just have to use this equation, D divided by 3. And remember, D means that's the distance that she's traveled. That's what we're trying to figure out. So we just have to solve this equation right here. That's all we have to do. Okay? And to do that, we want to get D by itself. So we're going to multiply by 3 on both sides. 3 on both sides because the 3's will cancel out here and we'll just do, because 3 divided by 3 is 1, and we're just left with D on this one side of the equation. And 70 times 3, well, I know 3 times 7 is 21. Add a 0, that gets 210. 210. Now, you'd think we're done, that D equals 210, but remember, this is a word problem. We're dealing with a car driving in miles per hour. Our distance is going to be 210 miles. Make sure you do not put miles per hour, okay? Distance is not miles per hour when we're just talking about how far did you go. If I asked you how far did you travel on your vacation, you wouldn't say 200 miles per hour. No, you'd say I went 200 miles away, right? That makes sense. So it's just miles. That's it. Perfect. Happy days. See you next time.